Welcome back, everyone, at Infinite Ways. We're doing another car stereo installation. It's a Kenwood DMX7709S with a backup camera. We got a mounting bracket and a USB flush mount hookup. It's going to be installed on this 2008 H3 Hummer. Now we're going to unbox our Kenwood. Looks like we got the radio connector, the speaker for calling people. This looks like a sensor for something wireless, a useless bracket, screws in the manual. This looks like for your reverse camera. And the deck itself. They make them a lot smaller now. Now we're going to unbox the camera, the backup camera. There's the camera itself. And a whole bunch of mounting accessories depending on what setup you got going on. There's this interface module. I've not really installed one of these before, but it's probably really straightforward. So it's just plug and play. That's all we got to do. That's perfect. We're going to remove this dash. I've put the car in neutral and put on the e-brake so it doesn't roll backwards. And what you're trying to do is just look for a spot to pull out this whole plastic piece. And you just use one of these tools here to get into the edges to do that. And then once you get it, it's just a matter of finding the rest of the clips. Once you've got that, then you just unplug all these connections in the back. I've unplugged everything. What was a little tricky was these ones. You just gotta pull this tab here and pull it out, kind of wiggle it out. These ones you have to put the two tabs in like this, pull it out. The other ones here is just you press here, pull it out. Two in the bottom here. This top one was kind of tricky because it's not like a press-in one. The way it works is there's a little clip up here that you have to just lift up, then pull it out. This one was a little tight too. Push it in, pull it out. To take out this deck, it's 4 hex bolts, 7mm, and it's just unscrew the bolt. I've unscrewed the deck. I'm just gonna take these connectors off. This deck is heavy. See, these are just clips that just pull apart. There's the radio. You press a little button here. Actually, that wasn't the radio. This is the radio. Right there. And that's it. Here's the radio interface. All it is a plug and play to allow the existing wires to be plugged into this so they can plug it into the deck. Always read the instructions when you can. It just makes your life so much easier. Simple as plugging everything in. So the pin comes, the pin side to the module here goes there, and then to the deck goes there. And then what you got to do is, if this is a Bose system, it uses RCA connectors. If not, you got to cut these off, which we will be doing, and then using these for your speakers. And based on the wiring diagram, it'll tell you what the rest of the wires are for. I'm going to now unpackage some of this hardware. This is going to be the mounting bracket. Seems pretty straightforward. You know, this part's going to go on the deck, and then this will go onto the dash. I'm going to open out the deck itself here. Right away, we don't need this metal thing. I'm going to take that out. Don't need that. And then this is going to go into the deck here. Like so. You see? And then I just got to figure out how this goes onto here. I'm going to now put together this bracket. What I realized is you have to slip these slots into here and make sure you've got the right side, left side, right side. The brackets kind of tell you, but essentially you slip it in there like that, and that way the deck will line up properly. Otherwise it won't be flush. Today we're also installing this USB flush mount connector. You have to take out the cigarette lighter. It is a little tough. You just kind of have to pull these tabs back and then pull it out. And then I had to actually cut the cigarette lighter because this particular mount goes into that part of it. And then I'll be taking off the cover because we don't need it anymore. and then that way you plug this into your deck, and it's flush mount and it looks nice and clean. This was a little loose, so you definitely have to hot glue gun it. And to get to the back side, I had to take these controls off, which were pretty simple because they're just 4 bolts here and here and here. I'm gonna install the microphone for the Bluetooth calling. I normally hide it underneath the fabric here, like I clip it on, and then it's like right beside the mirror, usually the best spot. Then we have the GPS antenna, which has to be mounted onto this metal plate, and I'm just gonna mount it on the dash here. It's got to be in near, like, on the windshield and line of sight, preferably. This car doesn't have much of an angle to the windshield, but it's the best spot for it. Decided to mount the microphone near the door here. It's just closer to the driver on this H3. This spot is a little farther from the driver, and I'm worried that it won't pick up the mic as well. So I'm just going to mount it here and then run the wire through this trim here, all the way through this side panel, and then back to the deck over here in that hole. The wires for the GPS is the same. It's just going to go through here. I'm going to tuck it underneath behind this panel here, and then underneath towards the deck cavity. What the mic looks like fully installed. I think it's in a great position. And basically you can't see the wires now. It's all hidden behind these panels. It goes underneath, above the steering column, underneath where the pedals, on top of the pedals there, and it comes back out here into where the deck's going to be, with lots of excess. I'm at the stage now of wiring the radio interface wires that come from the stock deck, plug and play, and then the wire for the deck itself. Now, this customer wanted everything to be soldered and shrink wrapped, so I've got to do that. And I will wire it up, make sure it works, then solder it, then shrink wrap, because shrink wrap closes everything and it's done once it's done. And it's a matching game. You got to match the wires to the colors. That's all it is. I've connected and spliced all the wires that need to be spliced. Heat shrink is put on one side of the wires. Once I solder them, then I'll heat shrink them. And then plug it all in and it should work. I've used every wire and matched every wire that's available. Not all wires are there to be used. Some of them aren't used for anything. I don't know why decks have that, but it happens. All my connection points are now soldered. The trick to soldering is you got to tin your soldering iron, or tin the solder. Basically, it's making sure that the soldering iron is hot enough, and then when you do solder, you put your soldering iron on the point where you're soldering, and you're trying to heat up the copper wire, and then put the solder on the copper wire. Your solder should have flux in it, so it kind of cleans and gets on with a nice connection. You don't want to keep your soldering iron in there too long, otherwise it melts the wire sheath. And you don't want the solder to look dull. It means it's a cold solder. It's got to be shiny. If it's shiny, then you've made a good connection. I always like to set up the rear view camera before I install it, just to make sure it works. So I've got it set up here, just temporarily plugged in. And I'm just going to start the car just to make sure that it does work on this deck. As you can see, the rear view camera works as it's supposed to. So I just got to hook it up. Good to make sure the camera works, but also I wanted to test to see if putting it in reverse, because the wires are wired up properly, if it will turn on. And it does. So all I got to do is just wire it as it is here, and run the wire. Next step, we'll be mounting our backup camera. I'm going to try to keep the existing stock camera because it's pretty cool. It turns on a James Bond backup camera thing comes from the mirror. Super cool. I want to keep that on. So I'm just going to use the license plate mounting camera for the backup camera, and it'll work just as good. So you can use both. Underneath the car here now, we're just going to run the wire underneath in the channel here and follow the existing wires. I'm going to tie wrap it, and then I'm going to go to the front of the car and then through the firewall to get into the deck. I've set up the rear camera, mounted it, and ran the wires underneath. And there's a section where the wires, the backup camera actually pulls off from the main wire. Just in case you ever have to replace the camera. I just tucked it up back here, so just in case in the future if you ever need to swap it, it's easy. And there's excess wire if you need to move the camera, which we likely won't. Finally got the backup wire run. Your best bet if you're going to run the wire underneath the car is to follow existing channels here. I kind of followed the electrical wiring. This is not electrical, it's a hydraulic line of some sort. But it's a good line to, it's not affecting anything mechanical, so it's fine. And you just tie wrap it along, and then you go right to the firewall of the car underneath, and then it'll come out here underneath the pedals. I came across here, there's a firewall. It's kind of blurry, but there's a firewall there, and that's right there. You can't see it. The wire going to that big rubber thing, and just tie so there's nothing touching. There's a wire there. So there's nothing touching that's moving or mechanical or hot. Final install, it's all in. USB port, backup camera's installed. Turn the stereo. It's got Android Auto, all the settings. Another good install.